Hey, what's up everyone? So today's video is all about how to succeed as a remote worker. So it basically requires its own set of skills to work from home or work remotely and really do so successfully. So we're going to give you all the best tips that you can use to really succeed at that. We actually got a whole series of videos that we're doing these weeks. So check out the playlist on our channel for more information. So yeah, let's dive right into all of those tips and tricks that you can use to really succeed as a remote worker. All right, so today we're going to cover several different topics on succeeding as a remote worker. So at the end of the day, it all comes down to setting up a proper work-life balance and good boundaries, setting up your workspace for success, communicating with your team and your boss and all that good stuff. And finally, it's just about taking care of your health. All right, so as a remote worker, one of the first things you should know is just set a good work-life balance for yourself and do that intentionally, and set good boundaries around when you work and when you're off of work. So many remote workers believe that they actually have to be online all the time, 24/7, responding to text messages or emails, that kind of thing, especially from their boss. But at the end of the day, people will respect if you set a clear boundary around your work and your life. And especially if you're using a tool like Slack or something like that, they all have that do not disturb mode. So the best thing you can do is just set up a good schedule for yourself. Wake up at around the same time every day, have your daily habits, and then just start work at the usual time. And especially if your coworkers get to know your schedule, that actually lets you leverage more flexibility. Maybe you want to get out of the house and go for a walk or go to the gym and grab a coffee. And so basically scheduling those breaks into your work schedule lets everybody know when you're available and when you're not. And by setting those clear boundaries, it also is going to let you reset at the end of the evening so that you're going to be, have everything turned off, you're not working, everything's on do not disturb mode, everybody knows you're off for the evening, and that you'll be able to reply first thing in the morning when you start work. And that way you're creating that space in the evening to really reset and to have a more holistic lifestyle. So one more benefit of setting clear boundaries is that you'll actually be able to set and block off time in your calendar if you do need to do some deep work type of tasks. So anything that requires a lot of concentration, where you shouldn't really be distracted by questions from coworkers and things like that, even during your normal work hours, you're actually going to create space to block off in your calendar, basically letting people know that you're doing some important work that you need to do uninterrupted, and that you'll be able to get back to them as soon as that work is finished, as soon as those time blocks are done. So that's just another benefit of being able to set clear boundaries. All right, so the next thing you're going to want to do is really to set up your workspace for success. So most remote workers actually end up working from home, but many also work from co-working spaces, coffee shops, really anywhere that's comfortable for you. So the first thing you can do is really just experiment with what kind of workspace works best for you. Most people have a home office, and that's actually just perfect for most people. Make sure to get a comfortable chair that's ergonomic and have a good setup. Just do a bit of research on ergonomics so that when you're using the computer or doing your work, you're going to be comfortable to do that for several hours at a time. The other thing you want to do is really think more intentionally about setting up different spaces for different activities. So if you're doing your work in your home office, then whenever you have some work that's personal, you might want to consider doing that in a different place, maybe at a dining room table or something like that. And that way you're reserving the work office for your work and kind of setting boundaries for your mind. That's actually going to help just to get you in the workflow, but also get out of it. The other thing you can do is when you have meals, don't eat at your desk. Actually go into the kitchen, at the dining room table, maybe get out of the house and just eat, have your meal, and then come back to your work. And that way, again, you're getting a good break mentally that's going to help you really reset, so when you come back to work, you're going to be fresh. So the last couple of points about workspace and workflow is that it helps to set clear office hours. So basically having the same schedule every day where you go to the office your home office and you sit, you do your work, you're available, coworkers know you're available, and basically keeping those same office hours consistent. Because as a remote worker, there is more flexibility, but you may also get a lot of benefit from just having that stable routine. And the last point is just about workflow. Sometimes it can take several hours to get into the flow, so it could be good to really block off 4 hours of contiguous work, especially depending on your type of work. If you do more deep work where you need to go and be focused for several hours at a time. But the last thing is you'll definitely want to take breaks. So basically, let's say you're doing that 4 hours of deep work, at least stand up, stretch your legs, maybe just walk around the house, get a glass of water, and basically take a 5-minute break every 1 hour, even while you're in the flow. But again, you're gonna have to experiment with all these ideas and add your own to really be intentional about setting up the workspace and the workflow that works for you. So just a point about your daily routine, it can help to have kind of a morning routine to get you going. The good news is you probably won't have a commute, or if you do, it'll be to somewhere nearby like a coffee shop or a co-working space. But even if you're working from home, it can really help to just wake up, make your coffee, take a shower, and put on work clothes and really get fresh, so that when you sit down to do your work, instead of working from your pajamas, it's really gonna help you get into the mindset and the workflow that you need to do your best work. So definitely recommend doing that. All right, so the next point is probably familiar if you've done remote working before, and that is the remote meetings. So we got several tips for this. So the first is actually just to use the video as much as possible. It can be really convenient if you have like a remote meeting to just turn on the audio and be there, but then be cooking or doing something in the background. But at the end of the day, you're gonna succeed best at your job if you're just using the video all the time, as well as like encouraging your team to use the video as well. You'll get better face-to-face interaction and you'll keep everybody focused on the work at hand. So the next thing you'll want to do is for each meeting, just basically set up and be prepared. So do a little bit of ahead of time preparation. So basically just have your video camera and make sure that it's a pretty good angle so that you're able to like really interact with your coworkers on a personal level. Body language says so much, and communicating tone and things like that will just be that much easier if you do a little prep work ahead of time to make sure everything is lined up and good. And the other thing is just wear your work clothes. So everybody's had those experiences where they are a coworker, somebody is kind of like in their pajamas and they're wearing like a work shirt, and then they stand up by accident and reveal that they're wearing pajamas. It's just a bit silly. So by wearing your work clothes during the meeting, during the day, not only will you avoid these kind of like mistakes and embarrassments, but you're also gonna feel more like in work mode and you're gonna do better work and just be sharper. All right, so especially with remote meetings, especially with a remote workflow, it's really important to take good notes during the meeting. And the other thing you can do is, in addition to taking those good notes, probably on paper, probably in a note-taking software, but not really getting too distracted on the computer with going to other like tasks and programs. You want to stay really focused on the meeting. But in addition to taking good notes, it's also great to send those out to your teammates at the end of the meeting to make sure you didn't miss anything, as well as to make sure that the notes you took are accurate. So the last thing for meeting organizers is, especially if there's some people are remote and some people are not remote, which we actually don't recommend doing. It's good if you're in the office to have everybody dial in, so everybody's kind of on an even playing field. But regardless, meeting organizers should make sure that everyone there is included in the meeting. So basically asking, just direct questions, and this is again generally for inclusion of meeting members, just asking, hey, what do you think? And asking directly people who maybe haven't really said anything. Again, it's a bit touch and go because you don't want to put people on the spot necessarily, but just making sure everyone's heard and included in the meeting, especially remote workers who, you want to make sure everybody's included. All right, so some more tips on your productivity and workflow. So one thing you want to do is probably set like time blocks and basically say you're going to do this work at this time. The other thing you can do is work from a list. So by just writing things down and checking them off, you're going to be holding yourself accountable in a way that you normally would be in the office if there's coworkers or your boss around. But in this case, you're holding yourself accountable, so it's going to make you much more productive. So when you make a list, you can actually use what's called the ABCDE method. So what this means is that you write down everything that you have to do or that you're responsible for, and then you write a letter next to each thing. So the A, B, and C is basically like A tasks should be the most important. You might be the only person who can do this on the team. It's a blocker, that kind of thing. And these are things that you must do or there's gonna be huge consequences. Now the B tasks are things that you could do, you should do, but at the end of the day, if you don't do them, they're just not as important as the A task. And the next thing is a C task, where these are things that you could do them or maybe not, and it may not have that much impact either way. And then the D task is actually stuff that you can delegate. And so this is stuff that you don't necessarily have to do. If you get really bogged down, you can always hand this task off to another team member who would be understanding. And finally, there's the E task, which it might have ended up on this list, but after looking at everything else you have to do, you might realize that you don't really need to do it, and so you can actually eliminate it. And so the idea is to always work on your A tasks first, because they're the most important, and just knock those off, get them done. They must be done, and there's consequences if they don't get done. And then you can work on the B tasks. At the end of the day, working on the C tasks may or may not be needed. They may turn into E tasks, where you can just eliminate them. And just calling out which tasks that you're able to delegate really helps you understand what only you can do versus what should be handed off to team members if you get really busy. All right, so especially for remote workers, and this is all about communication, you should really make sure that your work is visible. So most of us use like a tool like Slack or something like that to communicate with coworkers. And at the end of the day, it's important to just let everyone know what you're currently working on. This could be, frequent updates, daily updates, maybe there's a daily stand-up meeting or something like that. But just making sure that you're clearly communicating what you're working on at all times so everybody's aware. This helps to eliminate situations where you start working on something and then another team member starts working on the same thing and there's duplicate work. So things like that wouldn't happen if everyone is communicating clearly what they're working on. And the other thing is just keeping clear communication with your boss. Basically saying, here's what you've been working on, are those the right things? Are those the things that matter for the team? And basically knowing how well you're doing and getting those performance updates, because especially when you're working remotely, it's really important to keep close communication with your team, with your boss, and be more intentional about doing so. And the final thing you can do is just to have more meetings and have more like video calls and one-on-ones with people. So instead of shooting them a message, sometimes you can just hop on a quick video and ask the question. And that way you get a little more face time, you're working on those relationships, especially because it is remote work. So it's important to get some of that human face-to-face that you need in order to build a relationship with your teammates by doing more video calls. All right, so the last thing you're gonna wanna do, just as far as communication goes, is actually called over-communicating. So even if it feels like you're sending a lot of status updates, that's perfectly okay. It's much better to communicate a little too much rather than not communicate enough. And then especially when it comes down to, if you're blocked on something or you need help, just go ahead and reach out and ask a coworker to make sure that you're both on the same page. So at the end of the day, that's gonna help avoid rework, and it's gonna unblock you to make sure that you're the most productive you can be. All right, so especially for remote workers, a really big topic is around health in terms of work-life balance. So when you go to the office every day, then that's basically a time where you have to get out of the house, you're walking, even if you're driving, you walk to your car, and you're getting outside of the building. And in the office, you're usually walking around, you're going to lunch, etc. So when you work from home, sometimes it can be like easy to just literally walk to your office, work all day, and then walk to the couch and chill, and then go to bed. But if you do that, you're basically missing out on that health opportunity where, that's not gonna be great for your health. You're gonna, after a few weeks, just be super foggy and unproductive. So basically, the best thing you can do is just set an intentional routine into your week to make sure that you're getting out of the house, you're getting some variety in your life, and basically all these routines are gonna be good for your health and you won't even notice them. So just schedule time to go for walks, grab a coffee, meet somebody outside, that kind of thing. Go to the gym, all this kind of stuff. So just figure out how you want to schedule this into your schedule and be intentional about it. So other things you can do as a remote worker to just think more about your health, you could try meditation. It's going to help you reduce your stress and help you think clearly and actually be more productive. Especially when you're hanging out in the house all day, it's a great idea just to have some healthy snacks around, something that you can munch on while you're working, but is basically going to be healthy for you and delicious. Another point for remote workers is just about staying hydrated, like drinking a lot of water, like having a jug of water at your desk. That's just gonna be really good to keep your mind clear throughout the day. And another thing you could try is meal planning. So just try cooking from home, several times per day. That'll just give you a little more activity, and it can be fun, and then that way you can really focus on the meal planning to eat healthy and eat delicious as well. All right, so at the end of the day, like a lot of this, these tips comes down to just building healthy habits rather than worrying about setting health goals, because a goal is kind of like you achieve it and then you're done. But really healthy living is something you do every day. So just figure out the routines and workflows that work for you, that just basically build health into your life so that you're living a healthy lifestyle. All right, so the last thing you're gonna wanna do is combat that loneliness. So a ton of remote workers just reported that loneliness can be a big challenge as a remote worker, which makes sense, because if you're not in the office, you're not face to face every day with your coworkers, unless you build it into your life, then loneliness could be an issue. So to make sure that doesn't happen to you, just basically schedule this into your life. Like join some clubs, schedule time with friends every week. Go out and meet them, like go to happy hours, like whatever it is you need, get out of the house and socialize. And another thing you can do to combat loneliness is when you have that video call with your coworkers is just build the personal relationship a bit more. So at the beginning of the call, just ask them how their day is going, ask a couple personal questions like have they traveled lately, just stuff like that. And so just asking a question or two at the beginning of a call with a coworker and kind of connecting with them on a personal level, it's just gonna help you to build stronger relationship with your coworkers. It's also gonna just help combat that loneliness that may occur as a remote worker. And the last thing comes down to the team level, which you can have a lot of offsites or basically company retreats. And so especially for companies that have a lot of remote workers, this is a great way for employees to meet each other in person and just strengthen those relationships and build a strong company together. All right, so that basically wraps it up. We hope these tips have been really helpful to get you thinking about how to really succeed as a remote worker and basically address the specific challenges and opportunities that remote workers have with that flexible lifestyle. So if you like the content we're producing, go ahead and hit like. We're actually doing a whole series on remote work, so check that out on our channel. And subscribe if you want updates for when we post new videos. So, all right, thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments section if you have any other tips for remote workers or any specific questions or challenges, and we're gonna help you out. All right, thanks for watching.